So I hope it's okay if I start with a little bit of context on what we're looking at. Okay, so suicide rates have been on the rise since I think the early 90s. And among teens, they've increased a lot. Since 1999, I think rates among 15 to 19-year-olds have gone up by about 45%. So that's pretty high. It's the second leading cause of death among adolescents, right after accidental death and injury. Part of that is because they die by suicide often, but also part of it is because they don't tend to die from other things like cancer or heart attack, right? So it's a little bit of an inflated rank, but it's still a serious issue. Among the people who are at greatest risk are teens that have recently attempted suicide. So there's a high risk of reattempt in the first year after an initial attempt. That reattempt risk is highest in the 3 months after discharge from inpatient care. So you attempt suicide, maybe mom or dad brings you to the ER, then you get referred for inpatient treatment. You're there for something like a week. How long do you?
7 to 10 days.
Okay. Anna does more inpatient work than I do. Then when you're done there, often you are stepped down to what's called a partial hospitalization program. So this is like somewhere in between traditional outpatient psychotherapy and the sort of traditional like stereotype that you have in your head of inpatient treatment where you're there overnight. In a partial hospitalization program, you are there usually for a full or half day, but you go home at night. So it's intensive care, still acute, but it's designed to be sort of midway between the big stuff where we have to watch you 24 hours a day, and then the more we're going to see you once a week for several months. So that's where I am. So Anna sees them in inpatient, I see them in the partial program. And then once they discharge from partial, that's the period of highest risk. So those 12 weeks have about a 10% probability of reattempt. So it's relatively high. We would like for that number to go down. So of the places that you can look, unfortunately, the picture tends to be pretty grim. The recent meta-analytic work in suicide, especially for teens, has shown that we really don't have anything that reliably works, right? It's there, the data are just shitty. I don't know what to tell you. Among the things that have been shown to be effective are programs that will increase the amount of contact that teens have with the supportive adults around them in their lives that they already know. There was a program from 2000 that had a couple clinical trials, and in that program, which is what we're basing our work on, and this will be relevant in a second. I swear I'm going to land this plane. In that program called the Youth Support Team, an adolescent leaving inpatient or partial hospitalization is asked to nominate 3 to 4 trusted adults who they already know, who can serve on their support team. Mom and dad approve, and then we give those people basically social support skills training. And we do that, and then we check in with them once a week for about 15 minutes for 12 weeks. Now, what you probably heard is like we're focusing a lot on this team and like the teen is involved, but in that traditional program, the teen is actually not. So once you get the nominations from the teen, you never talk to them again. You're only focused on the adults because that teen is going to outpatient therapy for their own care. This program, when you randomize teens to get this plus traditional psychotherapy versus psychotherapy alone, has about a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality over the next 10 years. Yeah, even though the program itself only lasts 3 months. Yeah, and so that's not just suicide, that's drug overdose, homicide, which are things that suicidal teens are also at additional risk for when they're adults. The trouble with that program is those effects didn't emerge until 10 years later. If you take those kids and ask them at the beginning of the 12 weeks, how are you doing? They're going to say we're doing pretty bad. And at the end of those 12 weeks, they say we're about the same. Right. I mean, I was just shocked how when you go back and read those original trials without the 10-year follow-up, just like how well did they do initially? Really shocked that it's just like a flat line. Usually just random chance is going to get you more W's than that. I mean, like you really got to work hard to, land 10 tails in a row, but they really did.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was improbable that it was that bad. And so what we'd like to do is retain what we think are the core ingredients of that effective intervention, and then add to them in ways that can get beneficial symptom reduction fast and early on. So what we've done is we've added treatment components for teens, which includes what we're calling a dyadic or interactive session with each of the adults. And so the teen, one of the adults, and then one of us as a facilitator will ask a series of questions, play some games, and then work generally on strengthening the bond between teen and each adult. And so if you have 3 support people, there are 3 of these different sessions. In order to drag out those concepts into the actual general milieu that teens live in now, which is screens, we also send follow-up text messages that are designed to get them to continue having conversations with the supportive adults. About half of those questions are silly and are designed solely to retain attention. So these are things like, is cereal a soup? Have a debate. Or is it better to own a dragon or to be a dragon? Right? That's really designed, like, just please answer the text. Is really the goal there. Okay. And then the other half of them are designed to not so surreptitiously think about and reflect on ways to deepen the relationship that they have with the supportive adult. Okay. How are we so far?
Oh.
This is about as complicated as psychology gets. So you're doing well.
I have questions, more psychology questions about.
I promise to.
No, maybe, yeah, because I'm really curious. So
We can absolutely do that.
The trend has been going up since 1990. And is technology a big contributing factor towards?
The argument is better for girls than it is for boys. Their rates have increased faster and they've accelerated faster. Like what is that, a second derivative situation? Yeah, the derivative's bad since 2014, which coincides with the invention of the like button, which I think was actually 2013. But that's really difficult to tease out because those are population level trends. Anna, you know more about this than me. You're an actual child psychologist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of social related factors that increase suicide risk. And those factors also coincide with a lot of stress that you see on social media. So things like bullying, distress around how your peers are viewing you, that constant feedback and like the negative feedback loop that you get in your head. And kids don't get the same break that they used to. If you have bullies at school, you can at least leave and go home and you have a period of rest and reprieve. And now you have kids who are sort of on their computer doing homework, but they also have TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat up at the same time. And it's just like ping, 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 ping. And you see other people having positive communication, and you might either be getting no positive feedback or more starkly negative feedback. So I think the concentration is just a lot stronger.
Okay. It's good to know.
Mhm.
Interesting that we're using technology to try to fight back on that trend a little bit.
We are.
As you're about to talk.
Yeah.
And there's some definite pros as well. I mean, I think you cutting off communication social media wise is also risky, especially when kids are in a high risk period because they need it to contact for help or contact the people who are supportive, like the one friend who constantly tells you that they do care about you. And so I think that's a really interesting piece about this intervention is a lot of parents will panic and say, like, I'm just going to take my kid's phone away. And we also don't want that because then they don't have like a literal lifeline if they need to call for help. So rethinking about how can we use some of these technological methods of engagement for teens in a way that's going to buffer risk rather than increase it.
Right. An additional advantage, I think, is that when the original program that what we're doing is based on started, that was in 2002 before even clamshells were ubiquitous. And so you really had to restrict yourself to a support network that was within something like 25 miles of where you lived. And we have on our caseload right now, at least 2 or 3 teens who recently moved from somewhere out of state. And so they're in this high risk period where there actually probably are many supportive adults who are available to help them, just none of them are here. And so having a device which has been, specifically engineered to bring the world in front of you in a way that can be really dangerous, right? Because sometimes it's good when like the bullies in the world go away and they go to sleep. Also brings supportive people nearer to you too. I don't think in the same way that you can like get rid of the printing press, right? Like I don't think this is going away. I think a more productive way of trying to deal with this problem is to find a solution that works in the environment that people actually live in.
Mhm.
And in that case, that's the one in their pocket. Or at least that's what we tell the funders. Okay, so with all that in mind, we have this dilemma that I thought was going to be like 500 lines tops. I was like, I remember putting this in the grant and saying like, we don't even need to budget for that because I'll just do it on a weekend. Like
famous last words.
Yeah, they surely were. I think we're up to something like 6,000. And honestly, I think we're skimping. It could be better. And yeah, that's what it's like being a Rube.
Yeah.
So the dilemma that we have is we have a bunch of social workers who implement the dyadic session. So if you imagine that like Anna's mom and I'm teen, and then there's a social worker across the table or over Zoom, the social worker is working on a session that's going to deepen our connection, and we're going to talk about strategies for both staying healthy, because we try to set up the conversation in a way that's reciprocal and has nothing to do with pathology, acting as though like the teen is the only person who needs help and support. We try not to do that. What we need is mid-session, while that social worker is taking some notes in a HIPAA compliant survey process, that they can click a button where the first text will arrive to mom and teen. And we do that because we want there's research that shows that like building the text message experience into a live session increases the likelihood that they're going to respond to text messages later. So like we do a practice one. And then they can see and get some guidance from the social worker who provides much praise for them for answering the text message. So we need it to happen kind of live. A lag of a minute is kind of what you're living with cron. And unless you want to be creative, and I don't. But that's about the like broadest lag that we can wait before it gets awkward in session. So what needs to happen is, if you're looking on this art here, we have a virtual machine that lives somewhere on a server at the University of Rochester Medical Center. We like it. It is managed by our delightful IT people, and it's behind our firewall, and that makes us feel safe. Okay. What it needs to do is ping whatever survey software the social worker is using to conduct the session at that time, and wait till the social worker has done a series of tasks, but not done some other stuff, right? So it's got some goes and some no-go criteria. Once it senses those, it needs to grab the information that the social worker has entered into the form, including name and phone number of a teen and support person, and then hold it, think about it, put together a text message schedule of all of the different text messages that not only are about to be sent now, but will be sent for a couple weeks into the future, about one a week. Then it needs to send those to Twilio, where Twilio will send one right away, but it doesn't like scheduling. So the arrow goes back and forth here. Now our URMC virtual machine needs to also just frenetically check Twilio to see if any of the text messages that we've sort of stored as an attribute in its API are ready to go, right? So they live on Twilio, mostly because we don't super trust the URMC architecture to not just like disappear. They said that it would exist forever, but a colleague of ours went to go look for his machine recently, and these cost like $7,000, right? And they were like, no, you just don't have it anymore. Or there was it happened a couple of years ago where like the R drive just totally disappeared. Yeah, just like, and they're, bless their hearts, but they're not super apologetic about it. when it happens. And so what I would like to do is have all of the data stored either in this REDCap server somewhere that that is somewhere else, and then the Twilio server that is somewhere else. People who worry about losing money from us when things go badly, rather than people whose lives get simpler when our servers disappear because they no longer have to service them. So like we want the data in places where the incentives are aligned. That makes our lives a little bit more complicated because it means we have to be storing things like schedules in a place that are different than the sort of like master object can administer them. It needs to go get them out of the cupboard every time, think about whether the recipe is ready before it bakes. Okay. How are we doing so far? Okay. If this is clear, I'm so grateful. It took a long time to think of. So are we up for a demonstration?
Yes.
Okay. So here is, and it's everybody still seeing my screen. Here is me getting logged out of REDCap. Here is the project, and this is what it will look like for the social worker. We have a few. The one that I'm thinking of in my head as we do this, her name is Barb. She's going to click on add or edit record.
A lot of stuff on this page.
It is. There's a lot to like about REDCap. It is really easy to get through IRB, the ethics board that governs things like clinical trials, because it has all of the things that the IRB wants. It lacks some of the user friendliness of stuff that costs more money. Okay.
Yeah.
So see, it's got like different arms, like these would be different arms of a trial. And we would like to add a new record. There are a bunch of interviews that the kids can get. We're going to do text producing interview number 1, because this is an example project. And, you know, here is my test name. And, you know, do we want to defy the demonstration gods? I think we could try a complicated case. All right. So we're going to imagine that actually 2 people came with Ian today. You know, like Mom and Aunt Jane, who are both supporting him and on his team. And they're so busy that they couldn't do separate meetings. Please work. This is gonna be embarrassing if it doesn't. Okay, so this is so
It
sad.
worked earlier when we had one adult, so.
Well, it didn't work the first time.
I'm left.
It-
Channel your inner Steve Jobs.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody turn off your Wi-Fi. All right. And so do we want to, are you okay sharing your numbers? Okay, we will delete them right away. So imagine that Rich and Josh are helping out. Here's Ian. For those at home, please don't spam me. Rich, what's your number? Okay.
Spam me, I'll be mixed in with all the political spam that I got
Right.
inexplicably, constantly, and all this.
Yeah.
From the last time I did a demonstration like this. Okay. And you're all making like really excited expressions, but if this works, it's actually going to be more tedious because it's tedious than you think. Okay, so let's take a look while we do this at yeah, that's right. What are we trying to get to? Oh, right, because we're not connected to.
Yeah.
That's all right. Take me there, VPN, please. We always have to be polite to the VPN. Cisco giveth and Cisco taketh away. Sometimes it gets upset with us.
When's the last time you tried it?
This one, like a month ago. I'm usually at work when I have this laptop.
The second password is usually a 2-factor.
Oh, is it?
Duo.
I do have Duo.
'Cause I
That's,
put push in that.
Yeah, if you do push,
oh,
I gotta.
it'll, yeah,
sorry, I'm trash. Like this push.
Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
give me a notification, please. Ooh, something showed up. Where are you? Went away.
What to do.
Yes, verify. You didn't even give me a chance. We're gonna try this just a couple more times. I'd say one more time, but that would be disingenuous. You and I both know I'm not going to give up. Okay. Yes, I am trying to log in. Thank you for asking. Approve. Thank you. All right. Okay. And I probably should have done this in advance because I mean, for all the money they charge for this stuff, it has this dilemma where you often have to log in twice. So let's log in as me. Yeah, it's gonna make us log in twice. So this needs to time out one time before we can actually get in. So now would be a good time if anyone has intermediate questions about the process.
Well, you interestingly mentioned cron. And
Yeah.
it's atomic unit of 1 second
Mhm.
for tiny stuff. Have you thought about, that's actually a good question because I've never done anything cron less than 1 second.
I think it's 1 minute. 1 minute, yeah.
So I was looking around and, this is a good idea. System D timers. I never used the system D.
Oh, yeah?
So
I
system
haven't
D
either.
is the replacement for a lot of the management functionality of most modern Linux distros.
Mhm.
So I'll take some link here.
Yeah, that'd be great. System
But
D.
apparently you can do down to the nanosecond time, not that you need it.
I would be satisfied with 15 seconds.
There you go.
I would be, yeah, and there are people who gave some advice on how to be creative with cron. Like you can like have your script run, then sleep for 15 seconds, then run again. But that if like the first one ties up the process,
Yeah.
like the number of ways that could cause pain are substantially greater than the 59 seconds of awkwardness that the social worker will have to tolerate when it's kind of like silent in the session for a little bit. And so I thought we'd go with that. But if we want to take a look at what's going on, this is relatively straightforward. Let me try and maximize this. I'm sorry, I don't think I have a good way to zoom in on this, but if we look at the bottom here, this is what I've got. We've got a shell script that's designed to run every minute, another one that's designed to run every 15 minutes. The one that runs every minute is waiting for an enrollment, so who's starting new texts because they're in a session. And then the one that runs every 15 minutes is paranoid and checking Twilio all the time to see if there's a text that should be in the queue that's ready to go that it hasn't sent yet. We're running that every minute right now for demonstration purposes.
Okay. Ask you about that. Okay.
Good follow-up. Good follow-up. That's why we come here. And let's get out of here. Was there anything else I wanted to check? Okay, so let's look for the date. We are at 2/21 right now. And notice we have not received any texts. I'm gonna click, the group is ready to start the test. Then hit save and stay. And now we wait with bated breath and just do like this, because we just can't, I'm so worried. Theoretically, the three of us should receive text messages and it should be 2 dyads. So it should be me and Josh and me and Rich.
You have the watch command, type watch. Okay, watch space date.
Oh, wait, I don't need a type space. I can just make one.
There you go.
Okay, so it should have been like now. The fact that you have not received one makes me worry.
No,
Oh.
I got it.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay, you're gonna want to put. So you should have gotten a couple text messages that say things like, you're enrolled, Ian's enrolled, here's a practice text or something like that. We can wait, if you're all okay with it, for 1 more minute, because you will now get something like 6 texts once a minute for the next couple minutes. You might want to silence your phones. But I'm just pleased as punch that this actually worked. And if it's okay, I'm gonna wait till at least the first one should show up. So the next one that shows up for you should be the first one from the scheduler. What you received the first time was an immediate call to Twilio. The next one that you receive is the first time that second script should be able to find you.
Now we're at the next minute mark.
Yeah, there should be any.
There it goes.
Number 3.
I get number 2.
Oh, I got number 3 too. Yes. Okay. So good. So it's supposed to grab from a database and randomly give them to you for sciencey reasons. So that those are randomized. I unfortunately have not yet coded a way to turn it off. So you can depending on how much you like the vibrating feeling, you can keep it going, or you can silence yourself. Dealer's choice. Okay, so that's essentially the way that the program works. I admit I'm kind of a novice here, and I don't quite know how to ask for feedback. Are there things that things that worry me are generally like security. It seems relatively safe because everything here is HIPAA compliant except for Twilio, and private health information never goes to Twilio, right? None of these text messages are sensitive, but the phone numbers do, and phone numbers are HIPAA protected. Yeah, phone numbers and even dates down to the day.
Really?
Yeah.
16 points of personal health information that are considered identifiable.
Oh,
And the fact that that makes your job safer than mine. I didn't know it was that high.
Yep.
I was going to say 8.
16.
Cool. Awesome.
I
Do-
couldn't name them all off the top of my head.
Yeah, but if they were missing. Okay. And so I don't know what to ask for. I feel I can't help but say that we haven't successfully done this part of the intervention yet, which is why I wanted to come so quickly.
so we have three components here.
Yeah.
We have your scripts.
Yeah.
Remington Cron, we have Twilio,
Mhm.
we have REDCap.
REDCap, yep. REDCap is something like reactive data capture. It's like medical system surveys.
And your script, just to summarize everything here,
Mhm.
your script talks to both.
Yep.
That's what we're doing right now, what we think. So I got number 3, 5, and 2.
Nice.
1, 3, 5, and 2. Not bad. Okay. So I guess we're doing a code review.
Could we please?
Yeah. You have it in.
I have it in VS Code.
VS Code or.
Yes. So it's up here. Can everybody see that? How do we invigonate this? There we go.
I don't use VS Code. I don't know if there's like a present mode of some sort. Is there?
There's a Zen mode, which is, where is it? And that just does this. Is that what you're talking about?
That's perfect.
Okay. So we're looking at one of the shell scripts, and so one of the things that is a big priority to me, I don't have like root privileges or anything on the servers that we're working with.
Mhm.
Which makes it a little bit different than like fiddling around on my laptop at home. And so what I wanted is everything to be completely self-contained, so that if I need to ask an admin to copy the script somewhere, they know how to talk to each other, right? So here what I'm trying to do is make it so that this script knows where it lives. And knows to reach for the credentials based on the location of other stuff.
Yep.
I think this works based on the fact that we're receiving texts.
Mhm. Are you talking about the project there in your name? All that
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah,
That's a common thing that I do too. It's you want that contextual understanding of the script and what's around it.
right. And this is actually when we were testing what went wrong. Because I had screwed this up. I almost real talk didn't test it before we got here. I mean, I've tested it in previous days, but I thought, one more would be just to make sure. And sure enough, that one didn't work. Let me see if I can get to, how do I hide my controls here? So that I can see, is it these? And then I'll try and get out of here. Let me out of Zen mode. Well, show me the editors. Well, if this is what undoes me, I'm a little embarrassed.
It really colors up with Python code, doesn't it?
It does. And these are long lines, but I was just obsessed about not remembering what was going on 6 months later. But I was working. Thank you. I was working like a dog to make sure that we have really high test coverage. Because as far as I know, I don't know what I'm doing right now, to be honest with you. How do I get out of Zen mode? Anybody know?
I don't know. Try hitting escape. See what happens.
I've slapped escape several. There we
You
go.
tried to turn it off and on again?
Yeah. I actually just had to hit escape really hard so that it knew that I was getting embarrassed. Yeah, I swear I had hit it the first time. Yeah, so you can see the tests were actually the longest part. But maybe even just by looking at the tests, you can kind of see what the architecture of
Good
the
for you, though. I mean, testing is an important component that, okay, I consider myself a competent programmer, I guess. Like, how often do I write tests in my history? Almost never.
you're not y'all are not
No,
testing folks.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Since I moved to my new job,
Mhm.
I've been writing actual end-to-end tests, unit tests, things that are a proper software engineer would do. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
It,
And you're doing it from the get-go. Good for you.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I do it for selfish reasons. It like the emotional relief you get when you can just type in like what do we got here? We're using PyTest. When you can just type like PyTest and then you get all of like the green like go
Mhm.
stuff just makes me feel safe.
Yes.
It makes me feel like everything's gonna be okay. Like doesn't matter what's gonna happen in the midterms, doesn't matter if inflation is at 8.5%. You know what?
Bunch of okays.
My code's tested and good behavior is preserved when I make modifications.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see what the architecture looks like. So there's some very simple stuff that happens where I get an email if someone says any keyword that suggests something's going wrong. So if they say something like suicide or hurt myself, it sends an email directly to me, the lead researcher. There are some utilities that are just for like rearranging lists. And then the core of the work that we do here is recurring functions. And so maybe that's what we can look at. So there's an enroll participants function, and maybe I can make this a little bigger here. Again.
This is a very broad question beyond probably, but you mentioned looking for sentiment as a test. Have you thought about some more sophisticated components of looking for sentiment analysis to see if someone is sad or angry or?
Yeah, so we actually do have plans to do that, and we do it on a different project with the DoD. Yeah, they're big into that.
DoD of all things.
Yeah, we have a curious portfolio of people that we work with, from sad teens to sad airmen. But it's a lot of different folks.
Why should I laugh at that? That's not funny.
It's a little funny. Yeah, no, but these are good groups of people. They all suffer from similar problems, and you would be surprised at how much overlap there is in the tools that you can use to prevent suicide. And so the work that we're doing with them, and then we'll do with this project retrospectively, is to analyze whether the sentiment of the texts is prognostic for the amount of symptom reduction that you get later. Right. So like, can we tell, probably not like raw sentiment, like happiness, sadness, but something more like, are the number of like first person plural pronouns that you're using going up, right? Which would suggest something like group identification, right? Or one of the ones that we know is actually surprisingly predictive of suicide is a reduction in second person pronouns. So if you stop saying you or use guys or y'all, you know, any of your favorites, that's actually one of the strongest NLP sentiment kinds of predictors that we have, at least online. So like
Indicating separation.
yeah, so there's a sort of like internal, you know, self-reflective kind of attitude that we think that represents. Our hope is to do something a little bit more complicated, especially with the military. The intervention that we run is based in at the level of the unit. So what we're trying to do is develop more productive and healthy coping norms. And so far we've really been shocked at how successful that's been. And so what we'd like to be able to do is show not just that, like, you know, Airman Smith, who checks like, I liked this intervention, and then happens to be less suicidal 6 months later. We'd like to be able to show that the way that the people in these units are talking to each other is reflective of like the development of like a new norm and vocabulary. That's less related to this project, but yes, is the answer to your question. We do intend on using more.
So how do you capture these conversations with each other in group session?
Yeah, so it's easy when it's over Zoom, because Zoom, has its own transcription process, which I think is normally used for captioning, but you can use for data collection too. This is a new problem, so if anybody has ideas, let us know. Now that this like pesky pandemic is over, the military wants to go back to like doing things in person, which makes it hard because we can't use Zoom to get our data anymore. So basically what we have are a camera that can face a classroom of airmen in tech school, like they're learning how to repair aircraft, for example. We have a camera that faces them and a directional mic. So we can get audio and visual, and we need to find a way to get from that to who's talking, what are they saying, and how are they interacting.
So basically you want speech to text per person
Yes.
participant.
Yeah. And we can get some text, right? Like that's not hard to do.
You can transcribe, but can you attribute?
Yeah, that's the key. So what we're hoping to do is we've got a guy that we work with in the computer science department who
Who's that?
Jabo Luo.
Who's that?
Jabo Luo. He's an NLP guy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I don't know him very well.
He plays tennis with my boss, which is how we ran into him. But he has a quiet optimism that we can do this. Yeah, and it's all of these steps have worked so far, but I just am constantly thinking like, well, when's the next one going to be a brick wall? But thank you. So to answer the general structure of the code, we've got an enroll participants function. And there is a lot of paranoid logging, and this function is really just, one call to Twilio, which is initiate enrollment and do it with some data. It's actually not especially complicated. Everything around it is just exception handling and logging. This is where I thought, like, when I said this is going to be just a couple lines, these are the lines I thought it was going to be. And I was right, they're in there.
Yeah, they're in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Start with something.
Yeah, you sure do. And part of the excess here in like exception handling and logging, or at least what feels excessive to me, is that as far as I know, I'm the only one who could fix this if it broke. Like you're great. I'm so thankful for all of the administrative work that you do that I can't, which would definitely get us both fired if you didn't do it. This is just the
I can't fix this. I can't fix this.
I mean, I'm not yet. Not with that attitude.
Supply out.
Sorry?
What kind of reception do you get there?
I don't know. That's why watch this. This is trash, but
Why?
because I'm not expecting any particular kind of exception.
Oh my God, yes, you should. Well, okay. Okay.
Oh my God, yes, it is trash.
Not quite.
Yeah.
You should never, do a wild card,
Yeah.
Exception catching. So if there's a bare except, it's
Yeah.
not a good idea. This is probably known because you're catching exception, you're also saving the object, and you're logging it.
Yes, and is that
That's
sorry? That's
good.
bad. Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I was like, if this is bad, I'm really
No,
confused.
no,
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
another thing back in my day.
Yeah.
When I thought I was a good programmer and all I did was like use print statements. Yeah, this is good.
Well, where's it going to print to?
Well,
It's running somewhere on a place with no GUI.
output is output, but logging is a little more structured.
Yeah.
So I use something called struct log.
Oh yeah.
And it does nice coloration, and you can do either JSON output if you want to process it through something else.
I do want that.
Oh, so you want struct log.
Struct log. I'm gonna, if everyone's okay with that, start writing these down. So
There you go. Struct
like
log.
this.
Put it in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's
Okay, so it's really just exception handling. I will close this now. There are 4 other functions, but they're relatively straightforward. This is just grab some keywords. These 2 functions, check and notify safety words and check and notify withdrawal, are the same. So what we do is we grab a conversation, then we check whether it has any keywords. If we've checked it, then we mark it as checked, so we're not rechecking everything all the time. If there is a conversation that does have a safety word like suicide, we log that it happened. And then we send an email to yours truly. PI is not PI, it's principal investigator. Yes,
Just a side.
please.
Side clarification, all of the text conversations are routed through your stuff? So it doesn't put you directly in contact with each other, like when one texts the other, it comes through your stuff?
No, it's not. So if the way that we have to get it, I will bring us back to our illustrative figure. Where are you? It's this one. Okay. So our server never stores any data other than the log. It stores everything as an attribute on the JSON object that lives on Twilio. So when it creates a schedule, it grabs information from REDCap, writes down what it thinks should happen in the future, and then sends that to Twilio because we don't trust the server to continue to exist, at least not at all times. And so what the server does then is it checks every 15 minutes for these conversations that are stored on Twilio, which do get routed through them. So it's sort of eavesdropping on Twilio's processing of the conversations. And the reason that it can do that is because Twilio puts a little chat bot in the conversation, in the thread. So if you look at the thread that we're all in, it has you, me, and then Twilio's chatbot, which is us. So it's eavesdropping, which we tell them. So it's notified eavesdropping. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think the final thing is what I just described, this dispatch scheduled text. So if it's daytime, then we grab the Twilio conversations, like I just described. We grab the conversations from Twilio, and these have those attributes that we stored with them in it. Then for each conversation in those conversations, we try real hard to check and see if anyone's withdrawn yet.
I'm not sure that's what the try means.
That's what it feels like.
I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Try real hard.
Thank you. Like try, I really mean it. I'm gonna commit that later. We check and see if the person's withdrawn, so we shouldn't send them anything. We check their previous messages to make sure that we're not sending them text number 2 again. So we look for everything that they've sent. Then these are the attributes I was talking about. We grab them from the Twilio object that we just downloaded, check out the scheduled texts, and then attempt to send them. There are some objects here that, like an enrolled text schedule that I made, which is just an object that holds a dictionary and has some methods for how to handle it safely without, sending you a text in the middle of the night, things like that. But that's it. So if the next text is not none, then we try hard again.
Okay.
And when we get an exception, we log it and then ignore it.
It's still, okay. I'm putting on my former computer science instructor hat.
Please.
That accept,
Yeah.
wonderful. So that accept right there.
This one.
Accept below.
Yeah.
Accept above.
Yeah.
Make sure you at least minimally catch the exception.
Do the
this time
exception as E.
as
okay.
minimum.
And log it.
Now, you are logging. That's good, but it still makes me feel better.
When
Can you let me understand why?
Yeah.
Sorry, were you about to explain why when I asked it?
You have what went wrong.
Okay.
So you know what
Mhm.
to do differently.
That's good. I appreciate
Plus,
that.
you're also in the practice of catching a specific exception. Even though it's the broadest exception,
Mhm.
or the base class of all of them, you are catching it.
And
That's
what-
good,
And
yeah.
what I generally do is do 2 log statements. One log statement is what you have there, and the next log statement just does E, the string version of E, STR.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
E. And then you're printing out all of the information within your exception so you can see, and when you go back to your logs, this is what.
This
This
is
is as
what
much information as you can possibly have.
right. This is what Python was aware of when
Right.
things went bad. This is what I think was going wrong, which is like,
Yep.
well, I guess
Well, it
Everything
gives
you just said,
context
yeah.
from both directions.
Right,
From
I wanted to
the
know
application
where-
And from your business logic.
yes. And my business logic is that I don't know.
I just have to look at this stamp already.
It's not from us.
Not from you, no. Okay, well, so your code.
Yes, sir.
is Beautifully Python.
Thank you. That's what I was telling you I was really worried about earlier.
Mhm.
Oh, no.
I was ruminating about this afternoon. I was like, everyone's going to think I can't write idiomatic
Oh,
Python.
you got some, your casing's right for the classes, you're using all the right idiomatic Python constructs, I would expect.
Thank you.
Using is, for example.
That's true. Yeah.
Your file names are good, so I mean, again, putting on my instructor hat.
Thank you.
Like, looking at stuff, it's, I do recommend a
Yeah,
bunch
please.
of linting tools that I religiously put into my editors.
Yes.
Things like high flakes of PyQuid style. I usually just run the gamut, just like install all of them and I text editor to explode with a bunch of recommendations and stuff. I use something here called Black. Have you heard about Black?
Yeah. It's deterministic, right? It's going to give you the same thing every time.
Yeah.
I think
Uncompromising as they put it.
uncompromising. All right.
Yeah, but that's, I like that too. So it's a code formatter that will just flat out
Mhm.
reformat all your code for you. So I don't have to think about it. It's like a line should be broken a certain way, or
Mhm.
a very long, parameter list for a function should be broken a certain, it'll do it all for you.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah, I haven't done any linting here. And I get,
that's the fun part. I like the editor telling me, you should fix it. It's like a spell check.
Yeah.
Let's see, I would also recommend, so how many lines are in this particular file?
it should be, I don't know why we can't see it. Line 253.
Oh, grammar check. That's even better. Yeah,
So we're at 253 on this one.
I don't do that.
So there are some that are long, like the tests are super long.
Yeah.
Um,
Consider factoring.
Okay.
Find stuff that, even if it's not necessarily a common function amongst
Yeah.
other components, think about something that is just uniquely functional on its own.
Yeah.
Pull it out. I had this thing about too much indentation in Python, right?
Okay.
I don't have the beauty of braces like I would have on C or C++. I
Right.
like my braces, but I don't have it. So when I get too much indentation, I get itchy,
Right.
So,
So we're thinking you're looking at something like 7 indents here, and that's starting to be the point where aesthetically it's not working for you.
yeah.
Okay.
If you start exceeding line length before like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. You got me.
That's the problem. That's usually where I catch myself too, like I'm too far in.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be a good break. Yeah. Rich takes by your. No, these are, oh, hey, listen.
Sorry.
It's going back to help for you.
All right. Yeah. You're right. Because if we ever tried to, that's true. Yes. With indentation or with fewer indents in more files.
Not to mention, it'll make your life easier, because then
Yeah.
if you need to go and change your code, you have a bunch of functional components that are nicely broken out.
Mhm.
So,
And it's more self-descriptive.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. I don't quite know what to call these recurring functions other than like things that I want to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Anna, that she maintains her code.
Right. Right.
Oh, no, this is great. So,
Thank you.
how many module files do you have that are part of the actual?
So I mean, probably something like 10. So the Twilio utils, this, how long is this? This is 307 lines. It felt longer. Yeah, so you've got REDCap utils, Twilio utils, and then the text schedule. Basically, again, it's just a class that organizes a JSON object. And so these are all of the basic functions, like mark a message as reviewed already. So these are like general helper functions. And then those recurring functions are basically the structure of the program itself. I want to be able to do 5 things over and over again. And these are the sub things that those 5 things will all tend to do in different ways. So they'll be calling these same functions with different arguments.
I think that a lot of times the contents of a loop
Mhm.
or the contents of one of your try blocks.
Yeah.
Are good candidates for making into a method or a function.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good one.
So if I wanted to read your code for the first time and I want to find the entry point into your main code.
Yeah.
Which file would that be?
Ooh,
What's called to start the whole thing?
probably check enrollments. That I think that's, yeah, because
What's the first function that gets called?
open. But from here, text project, which this is get the REDCap data and organize it. And then text client is open up a Twilio client.
Okay.
So those are the two things.
Well, I'm not talking about that specifically. I apologize.
Mhm.
So the cron job calls your shell script.
Yep, and it calls this. Like the shell script calls check
Check
enrollments.
enrollments.
Yeah.
And then it calls this function here.
Yeah, check enrollments,
Okay,
the
check
file is
enrollments
named-
function.
right? And you know, when called as a script, I think it just, you know,
Mhm.
logs and runs itself
Okay,
with whatever arguments the cron shell or the shell script gives it.
my preference.
Yeah.
I don't know about other folks. I would put that in a function called main. That's just my traditional
Okay.
right here.
Like a high, maybe that high.
Yeah, not that line in
Oh.
particular, but everything under the under name check.
Yeah, yeah. So the under name just calls a single method.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
single function.
Including like the logging. We don't want,
Right, everything,
so are you imagining something? We've got this backed up, so we
Here,
can,
let's do a little interactive coding right.
yeah, I was gonna ask.
Okay, put your cursor right above start time,
Okay,
just for now.
Yeah.
Def space main and then.
okay,
Like
this?
At one level,
DDEF at one level.
and then colon.
All right.
That's it.
and then, well, you still want.
Well, we gotta indent one more time, right?
Column.
So the line above it, the if under name check.
Yeah.
I would put that at the bottom, not that it really matters, Python, but let's spell it out.
Okay, so we do this. And then we do this, and then we need to call main, right?
Yep.
So main like that.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's most common, that's most programmers, most Python programmers write stuff like that.
Okay, and they'll do it like this, even though they have like one function
Yep.
in the script.
If this is an entry point, if you're checking, so the under name check is a
Mm-hmm.
way of having the script act as a module
Mhm.
and as a program.
Yeah.
So if this module gets this file, it's
Yeah.
imported as a module somewhere.
Right.
It won't run your main.
Okay.
That's the point.
That's what I want.
But otherwise, you run it as a script, executed directly, off it will go.
Yeah, otherwise, like, if you ever use, like Rich was saying, if you use this as a module, you wouldn't have access to anything under that under main.
Oh. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you. That is better.
You talk about the global definition of everything.
Yeah, so without doing that move that we just did, creating that main function. If you use this check enrollment step high as a module somewhere else,
Mhm.
anything under that dunder name if statement is not accessible in other contexts.
Right.
Yeah, so if I wanted, are you saying like, if I wanted this like logging thing,
Yeah.
you know, start log, I would lose that if I'm doing check enrollments as a module somewhere else.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
and now I have it back because it's wrapped in a main function. Thank you. That is
Yeah,
helpful.
and the key there is the under name,
Mhm.
magic variable.
Mhm.
That's set to the name of the module.
Oh.
That's thing being
Okay.
loaded as.
Full disclosure, I've just kind of been doing that for years without
Uh-huh.
really knowing what it is.
A lot of my
That's
students
okay, that's,
try and explain it
very
to
difficult.
hundreds of students, like I can't explain that in a way that makes sense to
Mhm.
kids, like. Yeah, I tell them, just do it,
Yeah.
just do it, so I think in this case.
Mhm.
That's fine, get into practice of it, this is a very common namespace check. Because when you run a program, you're running it as a module.
Yeah.
And that module name is under name.
Mhm.
But if you import this file, its module name is check enrollments,
Oh,
that's different.
Yeah.
You Run it,
So
it's under name.
right. That's why it won't.
Run
Run
that,
that, yeah.
when you
Okay.
put it, yeah.
I just sort of assumed that Python just kind of knew what I wanted.
It does,
Because you told it.
Let's see, you have argument parsing. You could explore the use of art parse if you
Yeah.
do
A what?
something.
Arg parse
Arg parse?
is a library that turns those that argument array into an object.
Oh,
So that-
that's much better.
And you can define like.
Yeah.
Like you can have help text.
I like that a lot. And actually, I'm just going to throw these in the code base because that notepad is going to disappear in a second.
All the people we have online, if anyone else has any suggestions.
True. Yeah. Thank you. This is eye-opening. I appreciate it.
The article person makes it easier to present documents.
Yeah. Yeah, I normally also get paranoid about named arguments. That's like a, because I'm going to rearrange them somewhere in the function and I'm going to forget that I call that function somewhere else.
Let me check some other stuff. How do
Sure.
you do string formatting? I mean, you
This was from the example in logging. Please don't judge me. Normally I use an F string.
that's okay. F strings are great.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's an example?
Format method is also useful.
Oh, here we go. Here's an F string. Sorry, your faces are blocking stuff. Yeah, here's an F string with an argument in it.
Yep.
I swear I do it.
Yeah. As long as I don't see the percent signs, I'm fine.
Yes.
I know some things traditionally don't have it and you can't get around it, but
It's 2022. I think it's time for us to move on.
yes,
Interpolated strings.
even though it's C style string formatting, and C holds a special place in my heart, but nonetheless, it's Python. So I'm doing Python. What else? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just picking just a pick.
Please, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping.
Are there problems that you're running into?
No, and that's
Then it's perfect.
yeah. So that's what worries me is that so I spend a lot of time in R, and most of that though is for stuff that will get run exactly once. It's a data analysis, and because I do that for work on a regular basis, this is stuff I don't normally do. I spent a lot of time on it, but I haven't done other projects like this, and so when it comes to R, I have a really, I think, well calibrated barometer for knowing when something's like too easy, right? Like knowing when like I should be getting more exceptions than this, probably like it's not even turned on. Right. But I don't know that with Python as well, and definitely not with something where I'm interacting with a bunch of different parts. Like in my head, like I think I feel the way that my mother feels when she uses the printer, which is like, did I just send my social security number to Russia? And the answer is probably no, but she doesn't have a way of confirming that for herself. And in the same way, I don't have a way of confirming that I didn't just send a bunch of people's socials and diagnoses to Russia.
Speaking of communications.
Yeah.
How are you communicating with Twilio and REDCap?
Twilio has an API and a package that they use. So I use that. REDCap, I think, has a package too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's like actually pretty nice.
So you're not making any raw HTTP or socket calls, anything, or?
No, I don't think I make a single one. And that was important for me, selecting these tools, right? Like there are a lot of people who have, they'll give you access, but I didn't trust myself to handle the data in the wires.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fair enough.
wise.
And also that would have hurt. It's just like I didn't, this was painful enough.
What was the biggest challenge?
Oh, honestly, I think this is, I think would not be a challenge for someone who does this a lot, because there are just a lot of like, what the errors are. It was grabbing the data from REDCap and making sure that I had the right combination of, yes, these people are new, but not so new that we don't have their phone numbers yet. And there's no reason to believe that they might already have a text message conversation started that we are now like mistakenly resending them at midnight. Right. The quality of life items that for other people were the hardest. And I think I can show those really quickly.
Because you don't have a central database to say, oh, I already sent this.
Right. So like it really just needs to have like OCD over like, wait, did I actually send that already? And also because if we ever change the code or we need to copy in a new, for some reason they won't let us use Git on the master server. I know, it's like a
What are
whole-
you using instead?
the admin to copy and paste. Like on our dev server, we have two. On our dev server, we can use Git. But they want us for like the final draft, prime time. They want to copy and paste it in themselves. I feel the same way. And so I was like, okay, so there might be a time where the code base changes and like the stuff on the server totally changes in a way that's out of my control. It all needs to live on Twilio, right? It all, like someone else needs to hold it. So where's the, yeah, so there's a subject group class, which would be like me and Rich or me and Josh. And as you can see, like most of the functions are just, has this happened yet? So do we have all the contact info? Are we ready for texts? There are some readiness signals that it's expecting to receive, like has a name been filled out? If a name hasn't been filled out, we should be worried that whoever's involved is not ready to receive a text, even if we have their phone number. Do they already have a service ID on Twilio? Have they said explicitly that we've given them texts already? That would be definitely a kill criterion. And then look, you just assess enrollment status. Like, does it have the stuff that it needs? This honestly was the most tedious part, not because it was difficult to code, but because it took a lot of working memory to remember all the conditions that I would worry about in the future.
Can you collapse all the classes in there?
Yeah.
Now, everyone might have a little different style how to do this, but my personal preference is if I have like, here you have 4 different, very clearly different
Mhm.
classes. For readability, I might suggest say you have a file.
For each one.
Subject group or subject underscore group, whatever you want,
Mhm.
.py, put that class in there. Makes readability and discoverability
Yeah.
of your code a lot easier.
And you can have like a REDCap utility folder.
Okay. Yeah.
And then because.
Yeah, because some of this is like for me remembering like where all these things live. I think the folder would help. Okay.
Yeah. And you can also have that folder have a module behavior, and that's what the dunder init files
Yes.
are.
I think I have one of those, but couldn't quite get it to work.
Okay.
But I would ask for your advice on how to get it to work, but there are so many moving parts already that I worry that if it did work, then other things would not.
Yeah.
And I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I don't know how late we go. But I
generally go until about 9 or so. If
Okay.
We have content.
sure. All right. Works for me.
Where are your comments and doc screens?
On that note, there are none. I
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
spouting off.
yes. So I kind of wanted to because there are so many nice tools that'll like, turn your documentation into a pretty website. But honestly, I've been working on this nights and weekends for a while, and I thought to myself, to what end, right? Like the person who's likely to fix this in the future is me. And so the way that I tried to deal with that was by very long variable names.
Let me interrupt you.
Mhm.
Respect your future self.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
No, and
All right.
that's really where I have, that's where I started from too. It's like,
Mhm.
I can read my code.
Right.
But there are so many times where I go back to my own code and have to scratch my head. If I have to think about something for more than 30 seconds,
Yeah.
then I put a comment
Okay. All right. I'm gonna use that.
after I figure it out again.
Yeah.
So the comments, of course, for any sort of inline or a line comment or why something's done a certain way.
Yeah.
If it's not obvious to you without something.
Yeah. Okay. So people say that good
30
code
seconds might even be too long.
too long. So this is a like amateur fear. People say that like good code is self-documenting. Okay, right. So they look down on comments. No, we don't do that
No.
in the real world. Okay.
We'll beat them up. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's wrong.
The internet. I don't
need my
know.
comments. I gotta
People
go
say
for it.
that, you know.
No, because the comments really give the the story.
Okay.
It gives narrative to what you're looking
Never be afraid to put down something. Why did you do something a certain way, right? You know, like, why did you need an interview record class? Write a doc student.
Okay.
At the very top, write a
because
definition.
we speak English.
Right.
We don't speak code. It still takes, it's all about cycles. How many cycles it takes for you to interpret what you're doing so you can get done what you need to get done. And if you're reading text that is in a comment, you are thinking less than trying to interpret what that if statement means.
And what do I always say?
Don't think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thinking is the devil.
Yeah, it is. Thinking is the enemy. Yeah.
That's what I like to say.
That's right. Yeah, don't do it. It's bad for you.
Yes.
Um,
Precisely.
Anyway, not trying to, denigrate it. or-
No,
or critical. It's a very good practice to be in, and I want to make sure you feel good in the future with your stuff.
I do. I will, put my chin up at those internet bullies.
I mean,
And I'll
really,
tell them,
Well, take it from somebody who has 3rd-degree burns from themselves.
These are tests, so you have unit tests.
Yeah.
Right? You should try writing integration, your EDE tests, so we're gonna look at it.
Yeah.
Can you write a test that does the full thing, from REDCap to script to Twilio?
yeah, so.
Have
I-
it test the whole thing.
I think it exists. Yeah, so test recurring functions, I think, does that. So it has to delete everything that's on Twilio to start. And so testing, enrolling the participants, grabs the stuff from REDCap, boots up a Twilio client, makes sure those pesky existing conversations are gone. And then, yeah, I think
There are lots of comments here.
I think I only could think of one like assert statement for this because all of the sub functions are already tested. But it should enroll 2 people, right? So the service IDs that it gets back should be exactly 2.
Highlighted a very interesting gotcha.
Oh, yeah?
I should send you a link. I wrote a very nice article about
Okay.
Python misconceptions. This is one that I've always known, so I never used it. Others I had no idea about those.
Yeah.
But assert, now use them in tests, perfect use. That's fine.
Mhm.
You use them in your main code anywhere.
No, I don't.
Oh.
Should I?
No.
Okay. I don't like it. They send me errors and I would rather, the program is designed in a couple places. I would have a hard time finding them, but when I sat down to do this, I said, I want very like JavaScript style functionality where like, it just keeps trying, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if it breaks, I'm often going to be with a patient or in another meeting and I can't fix it right away anyway. So I would rather hear that something got logged as went wrong and then it just kept trying than it throws an exception and breaks and needs to get turned back on because I'm not going to realize that it's broken until 18 hours later. So it's designed to just keep driving over speed bumps
Okay.
whenever it can. But what were you thinking about asserts? What were you?
So interesting enough, I never run Python code like this, but
Mhm.
you can call an optimization bubble.
Oh.
On the Python code. So when it converts your code into bytecode,
Mhm.
which is basically a compilation step.
Yeah.
Of sorts, it can optimize the code in certain ways. And for whatever reason, I don't know what the logic is, it'll optimize out the asserts.
Oh.
So if you put asserts in your code to protect your code at certain places.
Mhm.
That your production code and optimize, instead of optimization level 1 or like O2 or something like that.
Sure.
They don't work. You have a problem, skip right over. it.
Well, that's the C or C language those days. Yeah, sorry, it's meant to be
Debug.
people tool.
Yeah,
So when you deploy your optimize, you optimize things. Or
excellent point.
it's not meant to detect errors. So it's like a sort of, if the function is something it's never supposed to be done.
I bet people online can't hear
Good point.
That's-
Probably so.
Disable-
There is a deep conversation happening about C and sorry, I'm and asserts. I'm trying to fill in the.
Asserts are meant for debug only and not for production code. Yeah, and so
People use reactional logic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Checking.
So don't use asserts in your production code.
Okay.
Is the net, because they're, like in other languages, you have compiler directives
Mhm.
where you can say, am I in debug or am
Oh,
I
yeah.
in release? And,
Mhm.
in some contexts within Python, the asserts are treated as debug only and not
Oh, yeah.
release.
That is good to know. I would never have known that. And
I didn't know that until right now.
wow, that's a little scary.
There's
well, 'cause that's the
always more to learn.
Because you know what, like I happen to be sufficiently paranoid that I just want extra tests because I also want the praise from PyTest when it has all the green text. That's fulfilling for me. But you could imagine a less, test motivated person just throwing in some asserts in a function saying like, well, this will break if something's wrong, which is what I want. I want it to just turn off. And then it won't.
Right.
Assert not is social security number.
Yes.
And apparently it'll only behave the way you want when you're looking,
Right.
which is kind of the exact
Yes.
opposite of what you
Yes.
want. It's like only effective when you're checking.
The quantum mechanical principles of the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, this looks really good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to hear you say that. And thank you for all of the advice. There have been a small number of times in my life where I've had access to a professional developer who's around and has some time and likes talking shop. And like everything that I know about testing, I learned in something like 45 minutes from some guy being like, you should run tests. And even that's
Lesson well learned.
thank you. Thank you.
If we could only be so efficient.
It's the same is true, I think, in our field, that like most of the important stuff you learn in like the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like most of what we do is just repeating things that people say back to them. We the fancy word for that is reflection and validation.
Yes. Yes.
But that's all it is. And if you can do that, you're pretty good. And I imagine that in software development, there are a lot of like really important things that you learn quickly, but not if you're an amateur, just because you don't run into them. And so thank you. I really appreciate it. This is soothing for me.
I dumped a couple links in the chat.
Thank you. Let me take a gander at those as soon as I remember how to use Zoom. There we go. I remembered. And I actually on my Zoom client cannot copy and paste out of it's HIPAA compliant. So I'm gonna screenshot, which they'll probably let you do. Yeah.
You can do that.
Screenshot.
No,
No.
I mean, but
You
the,
can limit.
the copy
yeah.
and pasting.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff
Yeah.
that gets limited, like recording can only go to a certain place.
Yeah.
Also,
Keep it going. I guess, yeah, you can. I'm surprised they can.
Yes. Oh, and they do it enthusiastically. They are very committed to that.
So when
Uh,
a link comes
Hard to
up, it's not a link, it's just text.
No, I can to people at home. I guess wow, this is like some next level stuff. So I guess you all actually can see. So if you look at this, I can click on links, but I can't copy and paste them. So the idea would be if there's ever the idea would be that you're trying to like make it like a session with a patient.
Yeah.
Would be in person. We have stuff that we can interact with when we're in person, but you can't leave with it.
Right.
So if they want me to see a link, I can go to the link, but I can't. I mean, I can. I obviously just took a screenshot of it.
Click on it.
Yeah. Right, but it's harder. It's harder.
Anybody have any other comments or feedback, questions?
Feelings.
Or more
So,
questions?
something that is important when the patient requires your text, is same for you or do you draw that back?
It-
Be the question.
Sure. So the question is, what happens when a patient replies to the text thread that we enter them in? Does it go to Twilio or does it go anywhere else? And the answer is, it works like a regular SMS text where they'll send that message to the carrier, and then the carrier distributes that message to all of the other numbers in the thread. One of those numbers in the thread happens to be our chatbot, which lives on Twilio. So by nature of the fact that we opened the thread, we will, as a consequence, receive all of the communication. Although it's the carrier that's doing that for us.
So I just replied,
Yeah, and I just got it.
you just got it.
Or someone texted me he will not, because we're in a separate dyads.
So the two people I see in this chat, one is the chat bot who said.
Yep.
And
Yeah, the 585 number should be the chat bot, and then the 651 number is me. So I can say hi back to Rich. And Josh will not receive it because we're imagining that he is like my aunt, whose relationship I cherish, but we're in a separate situation. That's important because we often run into people who all love the patient at the center of the support network, but hate each other. So it's really like for a while when we were trying to redesign this intervention, we were like, what if we got rid of this sort of like star shape in the network and we made it more like an integrated web? And so there would be like a lot of social cohesion, and like 5 minutes into that we were like, oh wait, they all hate each other. Or usually on like a 3-person team you get 2 people who are really close and then a third person who's like a really influential math teacher in the kid's life, and so they don't really have a reason to be interacting with mom and grandma. Yeah, so those have to stay separate.
So by sending these messages between you and me, what does your code do at this point? You said it does.
It's doing nothing. Well, I mean, every 15 minutes, it will check and see, have you said anything that indicates you're harming yourself? Have you said anything that indicates you want to withdraw from the study? So unsubscribe. If yes, then it'll stop sending you text messages. You can keep typing, but we won't send you anymore. And then if it's also simultaneously checking some of the attributes that we assigned to your conversation, which includes the text message schedule. So it's checking like, hey, it's great that Rich and Ian are talking. Is it time for their next prompt yet? If yes, then it sends the prompt.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
That's really neat.
Yeah, thank you. So this is weird. We looked so hard. As far as we know, there is like no commercial platform that can do group text messaging.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody, or like, because it blew me away?
No commercial platform that can do.
Yeah. So like if you want like an off-the-shelf product with no code, which many marketers want, like they have a list of 1,000 names of people who like bought something off of Amazon recently, and they want to send them an advertisement, or like these people are in your social club, or they're political, folks, right?
Yeah.
It's like one to many, but to say that a better way, it's many one-to-one conversations. And if you're like a realtor and you want to have a system that texts like 2 partners buying a house, that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like-
As an off-the-shelf product, like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we had to write it. Like,
Because Apple's iMessage would be perfect for this. 'Cause
Yes.
You can do that very, very easily.
Right.
Except it's not open.
Yes. Yeah. So there's no product, and there's no open product that you can use that requires no code. Even the ones that do allow you to code, generally their API won't let you do it. Twilio's is the only one that we've found that has. After like many hours of searching and signing up for so many free trials that our data was lost faster than you can say botnet. It's bad.
And we
Like
tried
I'm
some-
still getting ads. We tried a lot because it honestly just brute forcing these text messages, like having a social worker 9 a.m. every day, just like copy and paste the messages that need to be sent, would probably cost less than the hourly wage that it took to build this damn thing.
Yep.
And her name is Barb, and she has a heart of gold, and she would be happy to do it. So it really would be better in a lot of ways, but it just doesn't exist. And that's also reassuring as a researcher, because we're pretty sure we are the first people to have ever attempted to curate a multi-party conversation for any kind of psychological intervention ever. Yeah, no, it hasn't worked yet, so it's not as cool as it's new, but not quite effective. But
And you have the data that you're able to potentially leverage. It
Yes.
doesn't exist anywhere else.
no, as far as I know, and if it does exist somewhere else, it would be a group like ours,
Right.
which would be in a very niche situation with like HIV prevention, for example. So they wouldn't be overlapping with our area.
So are you planning on open sourcing this or?
If you want it, I mean, it's,
But I
it's
mean-
not,
Is it on GitHub
privately, yeah.
privately? Yeah, I can only imagine that other teams would be interested.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share it. My request would be if I'm gonna do that, can I come back one more time and we can make sure all of my credentials are scraped
Yes.
from everything in it?
Yeah.
Because our privacy officer was like, we don't normally let people write their own code. Because you know, for exactly that reason. And I was like, I would never do that.
Yes.
And it would just look really bad if it's like my phone number, you know, at the
Well, you
top.
already projected that out.
That's true. It would be worse if it were all the keys.
Yes.
That would be not so great.
Not YouTube yet. I'm planning on seeing if I can edit that portion.
That'd be
of
so
it.
helpful. And you have a personal incentive
Yes,
to avoid
I
that too.
do.
Yeah.
What'd you do? You, time to update, you made some changes.
He
You log
gives it
in?
and they copy and paste.
Yeah, I call my boy in IT, and he assures me that it'll be done within the next
Oh,
couple
that's
of
the thing
weeks.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to say changes.
So that's the dev server. That,
Server.
yeah,
Gotcha.
which might become the main server depending on like how long it takes for like real updates to happen.
Yeah, so my
Yeah,
thought was,
Like,
if you wanted to use, so you push to your GitHub.
Mhm.
That's a change, you tag it a certain way, whatever you do, and then a pipeline runs that deploys it
Mhm.
to your production server automatically. So you don't have to go on the
Yes.
production server and do anything manual, or your dev server and say git pull or anything like that.
Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe they would help us set that up, right? Like I think I knock them. I'm sorry, internet. They are busy people, and I think their biggest issue is that they're trying to make sure that,
everything
you know,
is
this like
staying.
multi-billion-dollar health center stays
I was
afloat.
one of those people, I'm not medicine, I was just a lowly departmental
Yeah.
administrator,
Yes,
so I lived that life, I know how it is, it's fine.
they have verbally expressed a desire to help. It
Yeah.
happens that they're pretty busy.
Yeah.
And I bet they would be open to talking through like a longer term solution that would allow them to not have to think about this every time I need an update.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I can only imagine that would help them
They would like
as
that.
much as it would.
Yes, I'm appreciative.